TV on the internet globally. We've just launched it this week. We've been experimenting off and on for a year or so with YouTubes, but now we have a dedicated Paul McGuire TV internet channel. We have the Paul McGuire TV report through our free prophetic newsletter, the E-Blast, which you can sign up for free. You get the television and the stories, news stories, and Bible prophecy teachings and analysis. You go to paulmcguire.org or paulmcguire.com and you can sign up friends, or you can get it free. If you go to paulmcguire.org, that's one of our websites. You can get the blog for free and send the blog out to your friends. And you'll find that paulmcguire.com and paulmcguire.org are both outreaches of this ministry, but they have a slightly different emphasis. But in any case, I encourage you to make sure that you're hooked into, on a daily basis, Paul McGuire TV, because our goal is to do a daily television program, and we've been pretty good about it. And the numbers internally look very good, extremely strong. As a side note, as many of you know, I was a nationally syndicated radio talk show host for over 10 years, broadcasting out of Los Angeles and in many, many major markets across the United States of America and going into Canada. And I was on drive time primarily between 3 to 6 p.m., but sometimes it was 2 to 6 p.m., and lots of reruns, or sometimes we were on 4 hours, for example, in the San Francisco, Northern California market a day. That's a lot. And reruns on weekends, etc., etc. Well, I used to tell the audience, because people are visual thinkers, I said, you could go to a crusade or a sporting event in a stadium, and you could look out and see all the seats filled in the stadium. And I said, on an average day, what I do on the Paul McGuire report is I speak to about 15, this is a conservative estimate, this is before we went global on the internet, I speak to about 15 giant sports stadiums filled with people. Now, the reason I use the picture is people don't understand the vast numbers that we're influencing. So, I consider that a privilege, and I mean that. It's a privilege, not something that I treat lightly. It's a privilege. It's given by God, and it can be taken away by God. And I'm very aware of that. Promotion doesn't come from the east or the west, it comes from the Lord. And humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, and in due time he will exalt you. And our goal is to use this television outreach. You can watch it on your cell phone, you can email it to your friends, but I look at the electronic map and we're in nations I never dreamed of that we would be in. I won't get into it now, but we're truly global. And it's possible because we have partners who, number one, pray for us because it's a spiritual warfare. And number two, they support us financially so that we can reach out. When you're out there on the internet doing topics like I do, the day the dollar died, these spooky covers and stuff. I do that intentionally, by the way, because I'm a fisher of men. I'm not trying to reach people who go to church, even though I am. I want to educate them and inform them, but I want to get people I want to get people like many of you were, and I was, turned off by the religion of Christianity, and people who are looking for answers, and they're all over the place. And by the way, there's several generations of young people that they want answers. They can tell that the puzzle pieces that they've been told that compose the reality construct that's being sold through the corporate media and through their friends. They can tell, because they're intelligent people. God created men and women to be intelligent people. I never make the mistake, by the way, in assuming that people are stupid. I really don't. So I don't talk down to people. And the reason I don't talk down to people is I don't meet stupid people. Oh, I meet people who don't have a great vocabulary, but God gave people intelligence, and I respect that in people. And that's not just lip service. It's something I learned a long, long time ago, because when I was a kid, I made mistakes by assuming that people weren't as perceptive as they are. People are perceptive. So they can tell that the composite reality that they're told is reality. The puzzle pieces that they've been given aren't fitting together. In other words, what they've been taught in school and society and in many other places, the puzzle pieces are not fitting together. They're jarring. They're out of place. So it's the nature of man to look for order, to look for rational explanations, and to attempt to fit things together so you can make sense versus nonsense out of what you perceive. And people are realizing that there's a lot of smoke and mirrors going on in the media, and just a lot of stuff that isn't true. And I think that's a good thing, because it reflects the fact that despite the premeditated strategy to dumb down the American public and populations all across the world through people like John Dewey, the founder of the father of the modern educational system, who used Soviet KGB techniques of indoctrination when he set up the public school systems. And that's not, when I say that, people always, they go berserk. Well, you can look it up, and I challenge you to, and if you want, I'll publish it up on the website. I will quote him verbatim, and you will be stunned about what John Dewey, what he actually said. He wanted to use education to break down the family, came out and said it, to make people citizens of global citizens, to destroy Christianity, and so on and so on. Why would he do that? He did that because he was a militant humanist. Now, I'm not saying that humanists are bad. My mother's a humanist. I used to be a humanist. Not really. I was more involved in the new age. And humanists can be very ethical, very intelligent, very good people. In fact, I've met a whole lot of humanists that act more like Christians than Christians. And in their ethical standards, their desire to do what is right. So you can't you would make the assumption that a Christian would live closer to the principles of Jesus Christ, but the reality is I've met a lot of humanists, although they deny the existence of a personal living God of the universe, the God of the Bible, they adhere to a very strong moral code. And that would be people like the great science fiction author Isaac Asimov, who I read all of his books when I was a kid, I, Robot, and all that stuff. It was great stuff. I don't know how many books Asimov wrote, but it was hundreds. And he was a very prolific writer. There were a lot of other people that influenced me when I was young who were humanists, and they were deep thinkers. I just don't agree with their conclusion. But I'm saying that in a long-winded way is because I don't believe that we should demonize humanists any more than humanists should demonize Christians. I was interviewing one of the heads of the Ayn Rand Institute, who came on my radio show, and of course that institute represents the philosophy of the great writer Ayn Rand. And she wrote books like The Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged, and she was against communitarianism, or the collective. She was a young girl when the communist revolution was happening in Russia. She escaped. She saw how it destroyed creativity, the individual, the creative spirit, etc., etc., and it made people same, like sameness. And communist thought, which is where our world is going today and where America is going today, is based on communitarianism, which is a spin-off of the word communism. We all exist for the good of the whole. Well, God doesn't view us that way. And Ayn Rand, she was not a Christian by any means. She was an atheist as far as I know, but she was brilliant, and she was one tough lady. Now, a lot of people, say she did. The term greed is good out of the original Wall Street movie directed by Oliver Stone with Michael Douglas when he says that famous expression, greed is good. Yeah, you have to take that phrase in its context. Ayn Rand would not have approved of what the Federal Reserve and the international bankers are doing, because in fact they're funding communism and communitarianism all over the world today. And what we have on planet Earth today is a colossal spiritual battle, an ideological battle, if you will, between several opposing worldviews. And really, the ultimate question that should be asked is which worldview is really true? Not which worldview do I believe or you believe. Which worldview is true apart from our belief system? And the humanists, to their credit, have many intellectuals and writers and thinkers, and they published the Humanist Manifesto 1 and the Humanist Manifesto 2, which is very similar to the Communist Manifesto, which is very similar to the Illuminati Manifesto. And it calls for a one world government, one world economic system, so on and so on. In contrast, a mentor of mine, Dr. Francis Schaeffer, and I was very close with his family and his son and his mother, and I won't go into the closeness of our relationship, but he wrote the Christian Manifesto, which he defended intelligently and intellectually the personal living God of the universe and why the Bible was true, not just spiritually, but scientifically, historically, sociologically, economically, sexually, and so on and so forth. Now, that's just a side note. And for those of you that are just starting to know me, I was raised an atheist. I was involved in what they call the New Age movement for, I don't know, 14 years old till I was 19, something like that, 13 years old, because I was reading Edgar Cayce and meditating, and then eventually got into psychedelic drugs and hung out with Timothy Leary on St. Mark's Place at the Electric Circus, and met Ken Kesey, the author of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest in Central Park, with the radical activist journalist Paul Krasner back then. And well, I was part of that because I grew up in New York City. I was demonstrating with the radical activist Abbie Hoffman when I was 15 years old. Ironically, Abbie Hoffman, later in his career, came out and admitted he was a communist. I was too naive as a 15-year-old boy to believe that when he said that, because he coined the term Yippie, Youth International Party, and I thought it was a joke. No, he was serious. And he helped promote Earth Day, and I'll never forget listening to some leaders of the counterculture, of which I was a member back then, talking in New York City, and they were talking about the fact that the Vietnam War was going to wind down and that they needed a new